Historians believe that Jesus could indeed have married Mary Magdalene. Certainly in southern France, there's a strong tradition that she arrived near Marseille carrying her child, whose descendants then married into the royal French Merovingian line, creating a Sang Real, a royal bloodline, the real Holy Grail.
Although the hard evidence for this is sketchy at best, some scholars believe that if Jesus was a rabbi, as the New Testament states, then it would have been very unusual for him not to have been married. Indeed, in the so-called Gnostic Gospels, which were not included in the New Testament and only discovered in 1945, there are a number of intriguing references of Jesus and Mary Magdalene having some sort of close relationship.
In the Gnostic Gospels, she is very much described as his lover. It was an illicit relationship, and it comes over very clearly in the reaction of the men of the mission, the famous 12 disciples, who really didn't get her at all. They just could not get her. And actually, she was a bit like Yoko Ono in the Beatles. She was the cuckoo in the nest. She was, a sort of divisive character among the men. And she was actually, if reading between the lines, very much the power behind the throne where Jesus was concerned. And Jesus clearly adored her.
What if Mary was the special one? What if Jesus Christ attached himself to her for purposes of his political gain and esteem? What if he was the +1 of Mary Magdalene?
As an ordained priest, how does your view on the whole bloodline theory sit with your faith?
I can reconcile my belief that Jesus is truly man and truly God by believing that he was married and that he had children and that he experienced as part of his terrestrial humanity, which was genuine and complete. That's his Godhead and his humanity perfectly combined. As a celibate, he is not a complete man.
The Bible is quite dismissive of Mary Magdalene, wouldn't you say?
I think that we have a rather underhanded editing by the people who put the canonical books together, and that what is often referred to as the New Testament Apocrypha and some of what came out of Qumran on the Dead Sea Scrolls is very informative and is well worth studying. It seemed to have been the purpose of those who put the canon of New Testament scripture together to have avoided references to Christ's marriage and family.
There is this extraordinary little interchange, again from the Gnostic Gospels, because you won't get any of this in the New Testament, but in the Gnostic Gospels you get this extraordinary thing where one of the men, probably Peter, goes to Jesus, because they're always complaining about her, and he says, "Lord, why do you love her more than you love all of us? Why are you always kissing her on the mouth?" And you think, come on boys, why do you think?
Intriguingly, some people believe that Leonardo da Vinci left a subtle hidden message about this relationship in one of his most famous works, The Last Supper. According to the New Testament, the person seated at the right side of Jesus was John the Apostle. But the figure that Leonardo drew looks, well, distinctly feminine, even with the hint of breasts.
In the New Testament, it makes the point that at the Last Supper, the young St. John is leaning against Jesus. In Da Vinci's painting, this character couldn't be leaning further away from Jesus. It's as if they're joined at the hip, but the characters are forming a sort of V shape between them. So he's obviously saying, look at this is not the biblical version I'm giving you. This is something I really want you to look at.
The idea of a relationship or even a marriage is controversial enough, but there are those who go much further and believe that Jesus didn't ascend into heaven from the cross, but actually survived the crucifixion when a deal was struck between Joseph of Arimathea, Jesus' uncle, and Pontius Pilate, the Roman governor at the time.
There's actually a couple of interesting aspects to the crucifixion that no one seems to really talk about. One of which is nobody was allowed near the crucifixion. By all accounts, people who are observing it from far away.